though we don't know the future. But if we not become proactive, it can cost a lot. So I always believe in rather than reactive, we try to become more proactive. And when we become more proactive, we think that how to become more proactive and think of what changes can become.
What strategies could RTOs adopt to proactively address future changes in the regulatory landscape?
One of my favorite things, I don't have it in this room here, otherwise I'd show you, but I have a crystal ball. I have this crystal ball. I'll show you something else that I've got that's a little bit like it. So imagine this is can you see this? This is an
Apple, yeah.
This is probably 30 years old. It's from Apple computers 30 years ago.
Oh.
And it's like a crystal ball. So I can actually see into the future. And Ian, remember I tried to sell it to you, but you couldn't afford it. I think none of us have that crystal ball apart from me. I wish I did have. But when you think about it, we've got a really good idea of what's going to go on. We know the new standards are released soon, hopefully. So one of the things you should be doing is looking quite clearly at the new standards. And in them, you'll see a whole range of things that are actually moving down more around that quality assurance path, like communication, leadership, risk assessment than we've had in the previous standards. So you should be getting your head around that. Let me make it clear that ASCOT have quite clearly said over the last couple of years about their move towards self-assurance. There's going to be a major activity to be addressed in the future. So what are you doing about that? Determine what this means. And if I say to you, what does self-assurance mean? Or you ask me, what does self-assurance? And I say to you something very simple, confidence. So if I'm self-assured, I have confidence. And then you ask yourself, do I have confidence in all of the stakeholders? Am I confident in myself as a leader? What have I got to do to increase that confidence? Am I confident in my trainers and assessors? What have I got to do to maintain and increase that confidence? Am I confident in all of my staff? And I think you'll start to see that as we move into the future. For example, if we were looking at an ISO-based system, that would require that you have clear records of all staff's capabilities, not just trainers and assessors. So start to think about what our standards are doing and moving much more towards the classic quality assurance. And think about that. So think about who your stakeholders are, management, all our staff, our processes and products. Are we confident in our processes and products? One of the things I saw today when I was sitting, I'd never seen near that introductory video that you showed. I thought, how exciting is that? You have the choice of how you do it and what platform you do it on. Are you confident that your current resources will meet the requirements of students that are much more down the path of being able to use the technology than maybe I've been over the years? And of course, things like our suppliers. And you would want to know if your customers, the people watching here today, are confident about what you do. So that's part of our self-assurance. How am I confident in my supplier? What do I do with my suppliers to make sure that they're providing that confidence to me? So I think in the future, future things that are going to be future changes are all going to be based around a real move towards classic quality assurance, the classic aspect, which our standards have only ever really focused on compliance. And it's good to see that the new standards are also focusing on those aspects to do with our customer. And are we confident in those processes? So yeah, that's what I would suggest, is start to be doing that future check. Your crystal ball, it won't help you unless you really put your whole mind and thoughts and efforts into it. But if we catch up in the future, Ben, I'll show you mine.
I think I want to add a few things that might be helpful. And what I always believe that though we don't know the future, but if we not become proactive, it can cost a lot. So I always believe in rather than reactive, we try to become more proactive. And when we become more proactive, we think that how to become more proactive and think of what changes can become in a business or any environment. The first thing, as probably John touched point about the student behavior, I want to see in next 5 years or next 3 years or next 10 years, what sort of student behavior going to change? This because of what is adult learning, people will have less and less time. So the more and more they want the flexibility of learning. So I would see that how can I create or give that option within my RTO of flexibility of learning. So probably you all know and probably all agree that online learning going to play a huge role. And that's a different role towards it. So what I would be first thing, how can I make my online or blended learning more interactive so it engages the student? And the engagement is because if we not do the online learning properly, it's going to create a whole lot of other issue because then student is not engaged, because when it's in classroom, that's a different motivation. When they're doing in their own time, it's sometimes a create difference. So we need to have a resources or stuff that is create interactivity, engagement, some sort of level of so student actually interested in doing all those things. We might need to do some sort of gamification, and it's not that expensive nowadays. And that way said, okay, and that also reduce the costing side as well. Maybe your training cost reduce as well. So maybe initially it's costly to set it up a little bit, but over a period of time, it's actually useful. So I always see that how the student behavior going to change in next year, because based on that behavior, our whole RTO industry work. Other compliance, pretty much John touched it. Other thing I can see that AI going to be huge change in future. Whether we like it or not, it's coming in every single industry. So that the sooner we embrace this change and learn that areas of thing I can improve, that will help every single RTO to set the new standard. So how I see that whatever the repetitive task that happen in RTO can be replaced by it. That saves your cost, effort, energy, so you can focus on other important area. So when we open to those new things, and when we see, okay, let me see how can I embrace the new changes, it open up the new opportunities for the business or RTO to grow. So that's I see from my side towards it.
Yeah. Yesterday, I was talking to one of my, it wasn't yesterday, it was a holiday in Queensland or in Brisbane yesterday. The day before, talking to a client about a PD session I'm going to be running, which is on appreciative inquiry. So it's not looking at problems, it's looking at what are we actually doing right so we can continue to do that rightness in other things. In other words, move into the future through that. Often, and those of us in the audience today, and again, I reflect back on Ian here, our quality background shows that we often use some tools to look at problems and solve them. Whereas if we look at the good things that we do and say, why do we do that well? What is there about what we do well that we can actually use in other areas? And that way takes us into the future as well. And I think that's all part of this Kaizen, small step improvement. We'll get there really well. So, yeah, some of you know that I'm 75 years old and I'm not about to retire. I enjoy what I do. Recently, my doctor said to me, "Pricey, you got another 15 years in work." And I said, "I know." I said, "But do I have to work until I'm 90? You know what? I probably will do because I enjoy it so much." And I think the future, Ben, is a future that we'll all benefit from. Your point about, I've got a client that's got the potential for 250,000 students worldwide. And what they're looking at being able to do that in a low touch way through gamification, through augmented reality and virtual reality. And Apple recently released some tools that make some of that really cheap, comparatively really cheap. So all the oldies who are out there thinking about what's going to happen to them, join me and say, let's join the young ones. It'll be a good journey for the future.